Hello, welcome to Wargamer. I'm your host, Rob. Welcome to Stream Street Day 151. That's right, we're in the back end of the 300 now, which is good, because that's exactly where I want to be. Like, you know, I always had it earmarked for like the 300, kind of 450 mark. So I feel like we're well on our way now, so that's good. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. Let's go. Honest Wargamers. Helgamar, thank you so much. Jabs, thanks for subscribing. So first up, thanks to everyone subscribing to the show. Gitly, Ange, Helgamar, and Jabs. Thank you to everyone on the Honest Wargamer Patreon. I couldn't do this without you. You pay for me to do this as a job. This is what I do for a living. So thank you for that. Literally couldn't do it without you, especially as my side hustle, or my main hustle as DJ, went away 5 months ago, whatever it might be. So big love. Spit on Pigeons, thanks also for subscribing. Big love to you. And thank you to everyone who listens to the podcast. And anyone who listens to any of the content. Doesn't matter if you don't support the show. I appreciate you doing so anyway. Especially because it features me. So, hello. Today's subject, or the subject of today's show, is just me. It's just going to be me yammering into the void, if you guys are okay with that. We're going to be talking about the Super Series launch. Specifically Genesis, so Super Series Genesis, which is the first Super Series event that the T-Sports Network is going to be held. And we're going to talk about some of the kind of like dramas that have surrounded that, how it's got to where it is now, how some of that decision-making occurred, and what's going to happen in the future. Because some of the things that's occurred, has occurred since the launch yesterday, have led me to believe that being more transparent about what might happen in the future and giving a timeline to you guys as to what our aims and goals are might be really useful for you to understand what we're trying to achieve. And that's the point of the show today, and to take any questions that you guys have got. Also, really excited about them warbands. I don't know if anyone's seen the Uruk and Daughters of Cain warbands. Never been overly into the Daughters of Cain aesthetic. I did collect them in 8th edition, but I was much more a fan of Dark Spears and Dark Shards, and I'm kind of sad that they never really got their time in the sun, because I quite like that kind of, it's the dark elven version of, I guess, the Lumineth, and it's more my aesthetic than, although I did also collect High Elves, so who am I to judge? Thanks, Curve Point, loving the whips of the venue. So big shout out to again to my man, the big old fish, or the big goldfish is what his real name is, who is building the venue. Well, he's not building the venue, but he's at least building the tables for us. So let's break some stuff down if you guys are okay with it, because obviously, if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, I'll include in the show notes. We announced the very first English Super Series, so the ESS, if anyone wants to get esportsy on me. It doesn't really work when you start doing like other Super Series in front of it. Really didn't think it through. Because the Scottish Super Series, if there was ever to be one, I know John pretty much doesn't want there to be one, and I'm cool with that too. Big love to you, John. Would be the Scottish Super Series, so SSS. Is that okay? I need to think it through, is the answer. Anyway, so we've announced Genesis, which is the first English Super Series, featuring 8 teams. Now, those 8 teams have already been picked, and they're already part of the process. I'll talk more about why that occurred specifically, but I will check my show notes to see if there's a global pandemic, to see if that's a part of it. So we will be talking about that. We won't be talking about who those teams are right now, and that's quite important. And the reason we won't be doing that is because we've made some cool trailer videos. Big shout out to Budtastic Guy, who has been doing all of the voiceovers. We've been collecting questionnaires and information, because if you've listened to anything from the show that I've ever done, the key part about Warhammer for me is the community and the stories surrounding the community. We talk about that a lot, kind of these ongoing storylines, and then also the armies and the ongoing storylines with the armies. So there's a great group of people helping me with the stats. Shout out to my stats squad. And there's also a great group of people helping me put together these kind of like humanitarian, nope, none of those words, meet these more human stories, so that you can follow those like those storylines as well, because that's the fun element. Like we've talked about before, the whole idea is meant to be something that you absorb, you watch, you be a part of, you get involved with, you get excited by. It's kind of the process. So yeah. Anyway, but before I go any further, I'd like to ask how everyone on the Twitch chat is, because you guys have joined me for 151 days. I feel like we are the ones. And I miss you. That's it. DJ Batman says Malarian and his elves will be sick. I agree with that. The problem I always had with the Dark Elf aesthetic is that I just am not an overly good painter. I did try the black spray gold trim, just wasn't very good. I would like to watch some tutorials on how to do that better. So that would be something, but they're not in my wheelhouse right now. I'm very much focused on Skaven. So I've just based all of my Seraphon. They're good to go. I've got a pretty potent list if nothing changes. So I'm very, very happy with that. And then moving forward, I mean, I've just got 90 Plague Bearers in front of me, but they're kind of to go in my Death Guard for Age of Sigmar, which are almost finished. And then for my Age of Sigmar force, I'd like to maybe move on to Skaven. So anyway, here we go. Keen for another 150 days. Yeah, well, let's see if I survive, shall we? Hello to Stufflin, Ziggy, what up? Star, DJ Batman, Jab, spending today writing Elf list, hoping to have success with something other than Eels. Good luck, Jabs. I'm sure you'll get there. Skaven on my first love, so keen to see this. Yeah, I mean, it's not like when another streamer or a content creator is like, I might do, like if Henry Steele was here from the Cult of Paint, or I mean, name them. I don't know if anyone saw Terry Pike's like outrageously pretty Slanesh demons that he just posted out on Twitter. They look super good. Super good. Yeah, Love Rats. I could do Gitli. I could just do the Love Rat army. Just Love Rats, red and pink. Does everyone think I should take the storyline from... If you guys don't know what I'm referencing, or it's the first time you've tuned into the content, on Mondays we did the Anvil of Apotheosis, which is something you can find inside the General's Handbook 2020, which is a way to create your own characters. Me, Dan, Nathan, James built some stupid characters. We told some stories. It was a great time. Not anywhere near as good as what the Animosity campaign looks like, which is a narrative run event that some guys are doing around the world. Quite complicated, and I would love to do it. If I had any time, that would be something that I'd be very interested in being a part of, because it looks awesome. So big shout out to that. Morning, JP Stevens. Hope you're well. Gitli, do it. The conversion project the people need. Looks like I'm doing Doom Wheels balls. But Doom Wheels with the giant balls. You could have your Love Rat as a general via Anvil. This won't help. Doing some very over-sexualized rats won't really help with my reputation. If that's anything I cared about. Right, okay, let's talk about the Super Series. And let's talk about Genesis. So Genesis is an 8-man team event, which will be launching mid-September. It will be done at the T-Sports Arena. T-Sports Arena. Let's approach that as well. Let's unpack that for a moment. So whenever I travel around the world, or to even an event, I have to deal with the venue that I'm stuck into. Sometimes it's low ceilings, sometimes it's poor internet, sometimes there's no light, sometimes it's super hot, sometimes it's not very far, the commentators aren't very far away from the tables. There are loads of problems when you go to an event, which is all fun. They're fun challenges to explore, and I'm one of those people who's you give me a challenge and I complete the challenge, or I like kicking problems down the road, which makes me a terrible listener sometimes, because someone is telling me their problems and I try to solve the problem. And some people just want to listen. Some people just want you to listen, not actually try to solve the problem, which is something I've learned this year, the past couple of years, that sometimes you don't have to solve the problem. But anyway, it's a learning thing about me. One of the things that has always been really difficult for us is when we turn up to an event, or we also have to take all of the gear to an event. And as time has gone on, the quantity of gear that we've produced or put together has obviously increased, and therefore it's taken more cars and vehicles or train space or flight space, or whatever the situation might be. So also if we could all just give some big goldfish some love in the chat, because he is building the tables for the arena, so I'd just love you to give him some chat, because they're looking pretty sweet. Anyway, so when we approached talking about doing the Super Series, and there is a team of us. Big shout out to Tom Wallace specifically, who's kind of like my partner in crime in this, but it's really the whole Honest Wargamer crew who have been a part of this conversation. We talked about what would be best and what really could fit into our budget of £0, obviously. One of the key elements very, very early that we wanted to achieve was we wanted to make an environment for players. So one of the things that happens a lot is that Warhammer is effectively done as a hobby. And I love that. And I never want to remove that. And I want the hobby to continue. I want events as they are to stay as they are. Like, that's basically how they are. I'd like them to get better for everyone as well. But I want events to be what they are already, because events are cool. Whether they be singles events, team events, narrative events, doesn't matter. I want them all to be off they go. I guess this is a lot about my personal intent that you guys are going to hear today. And I hope that's okay. What I wanted to do with the Super Series was I really wanted to create a space for competitive gaming that I felt maybe sometimes that a normal event would have 2 feet in a camp. So you'd have a feet in wanting everyone to have a great time and people to play and people to compete. And sometimes those were at odds. And we've all had those conversations, been part of those conversations before. And sometimes that's an issue. So what I wanted to do was just create a space so that people could play. And that was the main focus, was having a good game of Warhammer that was a competitive game of Warhammer, and it was accepted you were going to bring the hardest list possible. That's the plan. But I also wanted to make it so that it had it had more tactical depth, and we'll go on to that more later. Anyway, so when we talked about this and how we were going to do it, we realized that we would need our own space, and we looked at maybe renting somewhere, but that was far too expensive, because we would need to rent somewhere every week. The reason we're not doing it all in one day is because, again, we won't be able to focus down on those players. So at Genesis, for example, there'll be 2 teams of 4 playing over 3 rounds. So you'll be able to watch each one of those 8 players, really. But let's say you really care about the guy who's playing Nighthaunt, let's say. You'll be able to watch him play 3 games with his Nighthaunt army over 3 different battle plans against 3 different opponents. So you'll get this from us, this view of how to kind of tactically play a Nighthaunt army over 3 games, which is awesome. And it's in a very intense setting. So it won't be me playing Nighthaunt, and if I tried to play with my Nighthaunt, it'd be bad. Well, I don't know. I'd take Hex Wraiths, and I'd also take a Black Coach. So I do think it would be bad, but I'd run for Death Riders, and I'd just keep rolling dice, would be my plan. But I don't think that works. Anyway. But it would be someone who's competent with Nighthaunt, someone who can, I remember being over in Sweden, and it was the real, I know Benjamin Savard, for example, was playing a lot of Legion of Grief and doing really well with it. I also know Ash McEwen over in Australia, for instance, was playing with his Nighthaunt and doing well with it. I've never seen it play, but when I was over in Sweden at Krugsluntan and I saw Jesper play with his Nighthaunt and was playing game 4 out of 5 to try to take out the event, it was an excellent display of gamesmanship that you don't really get unless you approach that army that well. And that's what I really want to showcase. That's why I've always wanted to do live coverage of events, because I think that the game you have with your mates in a shop or when you're having a beer or whatever the situation might be, sometimes isn't that game that is at a tournament where there's something on the line. I feel there's a different energy to it, and I feel there's just a different vibe to it. And so those are the games that I want to showcase, because those are the hardest games to showcase. I oftentimes feel bat reps are very much you and your mates having a game. And I think that's why they're so attractive for people to watch, because they're just really fun. Yeah, and sometimes they're also very, very tactical, which is great. And people make really great strides in making very tactical bat reps that are also fun. And all the people that do that, I think, are brilliant, and you should support them in any way you can. But I think tournament wargaming is a different breed, not a better breed, just a different breed. And I think that different breed of wargames are what I want to showcase and what I want to put on, and also what I think are valid to show. Because we talk a lot about the winner of said tournament, or the guy that came third. But if you can't see that, it's just some ephemeral thing that happened. And so I wanted to give substance and life to the existence of those things. Right, okay, anyway. So that's where we're at right now. Okay, big love to everyone in the chat. Hope you're all well. So what's going on here? I've lost my thread. Which is why I should always have someone interview me. That works loads better. So when we approached having a venue, when we wanted to talk about having a venue, we needed to look at how exactly we could organize a venue and what would be best. And thankfully, what happened was we were able to find a space which we were able to sublet. But obviously we had to front all that money up ahead of time, which is quite scary. We then had to also organize tables, and that there's a huge financial cost in there as well to be organized. We also had to fix the space. We had to take out a bar, put up walls. We have to plumb in electrics. We have to power the entire thing. So there's loads and loads of things. Oh, Mere Mouse, thank you very much for donating £30 to the Sound Gear Fund, which is where we're at. Like, that's fantastic. Yeah, big love to you. So the follow-up is that we wanted to do that and put that on where it was, which is quite stressful because then we have to make sure that we've got the teams in place, the venue in place, and everything before we go live. But obviously that has to happen quite a long time before, like, we agree contracts and all that other stuff and all that rubbish that you have to do. So you have to get quite, like, it takes a lot of work before we get to being able to announce the thing. And you obviously don't want to announce the thing 6 months ago, looking at Gargant's Games Workshop. Yeah, you just don't want to do that element. So what we did was we picked a venue, or we found our venue, which was awesome. We haggled forever, and then we've done lots of work on that since. And so the timeline for the venue being done was concurrent with the timeline of the players, because what we also needed to do in the global pandemic is we need to organize 8 teams of 4 people with some subs to be able to play on certain dates. So before we approach that, what we did was we organized the teams. Well, I organized the teams. So I picked the teams ahead of time, which is intentional, right? Like, it was intentional. And there's a whole bunch of reasons as to why we picked the teams ahead of time. But what it isn't is it doesn't not let new teams enter. And we'll get onto that later, because I'm excited for new teams entering. It's the most important bit to me, actually. But there is that global pandemic issue, which we need to return to in a moment. So when I picked the teams, and I didn't pick the teams because there was actually like an entry form on the Super Series website you could sign up for. What we did was we grabbed a bunch of different people and from out of there, and we asked if they could form teams or whatnot. And then when we needed some more people for rosters, we started to approach some people. And that's because I need to guarantee ahead of time that these people were okay with me saying, hey guys, these are the proposed dates. Could you keep 3 weekends free in this like kind of block? But I might change that around because of the global pandemic. And all of the teams were awesome and were like, yeah, not a problem. This is cool. And then I was like, that's really sweet. And I was like, oh, you also don't mind not knowing who you're playing and when? Also great. So what I did for this kind of beta test as an event, I asked a bunch of people to help me help create the thing. So there was a lot of moving parts, organizing the venue, organizing the teams, then organizing the promotional material so you guys could find about it in like a professional setting. Because the concept is that you guys see it as a professional thing, as like a T-sport, as a sport. Yeah. All of the teams, yeah, we are free for you every time. So the teams, so that was the process for the initial Super Series. And if you felt hard done by, like you didn't get to be a part of that process, then I apologize. Like, I know for a fact loads of the lads in Northern Ireland would have flown over for it, but it's an English Super Series, like not the UK Super Series. I'm sure the Northern Irish and Republic of Irish lads are going to be having their own at some point. And if you're English, you shouldn't be allowed to compete in that. That's how it works, in my opinion. Anyway, but the exciting news is the future and where we're going to take this as a hobby. Because singles events are still going to happen. So that's great. And we're still going to support those when we can support those. When there are big events or just events that like need coverage. If it fits into our timeline, we're also going to do that element. That's always good, always is, and always going to be part of the process of what we do. But this also means that we can guarantee when we can also produce content for the community. That was another major problem that we previously had. Sometimes there would be 3 events in a weekend and then nothing for 3 weeks, which is a major deal. Like, because then it was really, really hard for us to plan, organize a crew, and all that other stuff. Also, you always want to hit in with the quality of what's going on. Like, you always want to hit in with the quality of you always want to do good quality content and good quality coverage, right? That's really important. But the problem is it doesn't really give you any time to train. So when we have a venue, we're going to be able to train people, which is something, again, I'm very excited about. It's not meant to be the me show. It's meant to be the T-Sport show. So I want to get like new commentators, new table bosses, new tech guys, no interviewers, like the whole thing. We've put a stats team together recently, and that's been really awesome. And I've loved putting the stats team together. It's been really cool. Like, so those guys are going to help me produce better stats, which means we're going to produce better content. Sorry, I've gone on a I've hit my limit for the moment, so I'm just gonna take a moment here because I'm excited to tell you about the future in a sec. Right, been talking about this in the LWG chat today. Apart from the lads who might be heading, I think it's a format we'll try out for a laugh too locally. Why aren't Legend Scrolls allowed, Rob? I'm so sorry. I guess the other, we'll talk about the pack in a moment. Well, let's talk about the future. So the key element for this, and some criticism it has, is that I'm trying to gatekeep the hobby. That what I'm trying to do is make it so that it's an elite group of people. Well, obviously this is silly because you must not know anything about me. So the plan is while Genesis occurs, we start to set up our qualifying team tournament. Now, initially the plan was for that to be a large-scale team tournament, but obviously that probably won't happen with COVID. But it does depend, and it is really important, on sizing, spacing, and a bunch of other stuff that we'd like to organize. So again, that's more logistics that we have to think through and put it on. And we've reached out to some tournament organizers already who've put on large-scale events like this, and we've already asked them to help us and to think about what we might do to do that as a community. If that isn't the case that a large-scale one could be done, the plan is to separate it out into smaller regional team tournaments that you end up with some local champions, which is cool, and then they can enter the Super Series. What's fun about that, either the large-scale team tournament or the small-scale team tournament, is it's directly geared for new people, new players, new coaches, and for people to show that they're very invested in doing well at Warhammer, which is really, really exciting. Because what I really, really want, and one of the teams that I intentionally formulated, was a group of young people who are like more on the cutting edge, let's say, of of fun, and it is a super team. And the reason I put that community together intentionally put that community together was because what I really wanted was to show what a super team would look like, and also what a group of like not very well known people can do inside that, to show that there is intended to be new people in the game. Now, again, you don't know what the teams are, and I'm not going to tell you today because that's meant to be part of the build-up, right? So it's like, but I feel like I'm forced to have a conversation about it, and for you to all know that there's pathways in to play in future Super Series. It's actually the most important part of what I want to do, because I want to get new people in. I want people to see that there's a process to be like, there's a reason for me to play practice games with my friends. I'm going to form a team. We're going to play the other team in our local community. We're going to practice loads. We're going to practice and practice and practice, and then we can go to this team event. And I'm into it. Yeah? I think it's really exciting. Anyway, let's see what you guys in the chat saying. Is the stats team full? Yes, meatballs. No. I'll drop you a link in a minute. All Boys Club Rob in the house. Stephen AOS, thanks very much for subscribing. Can't believe I missed the Twitter about it. Yes. Anyway, I'm going to try and be more adult about it all, because that's the right decision to make. So there are pathways in for people to play. So timeline. Let's talk timeline, because that's important. September starts, and in September it's not called a round, that 4 teams play over 4 weeks, 8 teams play, over 4 weeks. Then there's a 2-week gap. Then there's a 2-week semi-finals run for the 4 teams that won, because it's single elimination. Then there's a 3-week gap. Initially, it was meant to be a 2-week gap, so there's some uniformity between it. But it turned out that the final landed on the same date as the Justice Series GT by the Just Play guys. So we intentionally moved that date because I didn't want to, if there's only very few events, I didn't want to, make people have to pick and choose, because I felt that was really harsh. But also, I really just wanted to support that event, which is an event we covered last year, and it's a great event. Both Richie and Ian put on a great event, and they've done some excellent innovation in tournament organizing. Specifically, one of the things that they did was they mapped out which of the mystical terrain was on the board. I was a huge fan of it, and I think it's an excellent way, and we've included that in the Super Series pack. So great work there. So that's a cool event, which I think will be happening not the 27th, the week before that. So the 20th, maybe. But someone could double check that. Can we talk about team names and why Blue Barracudas is the best name? Yeah. So what is the Super Series pack, Rinaldi? So the pack's available on the website. You can download it. It's a PDF. You can share. You can go look at it, and it takes you through all that information. It's really easy. So that timeline, okay? So before Christmas, we'll have a Super Series done and in the can, which is cool. And then we'll be able to analyze things that we think we did well and things that we didn't think we did well and improve for next time, which the plan is for February onwards to run the next Super Series. And every 6 months, have a Super Series, in England at least, and then run that cyclically with team qualifiers before then. I feel like a 6-month block is nice. It makes it condensed. It fits into a timeline. It fits into the difference between winter FAQs or chapter approved updates and new game editions and or general's handbooks or stuff that generally happens in the summer. So it gives us kind of like a time of stability in the middle where you're able to run an event, which I think is quite nice, because obviously it happens over the course of time, not happening on specific dates, which is, I think, really useful. So so that's the timeline for you guys to kind of process and understand in the future, knowing that if you wanted to put a team together, team qualifiers more than likely will happen sometime around January, maybe even early February. Again, depending on COVID, the global pandemic, which is shutting most things down, and how well we're able to organize it. Because if we can't organize it well, we just won't do it. Seems fair. So there's your pathway in. So if you're like, I want a team and I want to be in the Super Series, well, you can watch the first one, learn some things. We might change some of the elements for the second Super Series, but the team qualifier you'll be able to play. Another cool thing about the team qualifier is you obviously can't institute something like the ban phase for a team qualifier event. It doesn't really work because everyone has to turn up. So it's just a regular team tournament, knowing that you're going into something like the Super Series where ban stuff is available. So if you only have a limited resource of armies, then that's your time to prove that you can, play really well. And if you can't play really well, maybe give yourself or gain the resources to be able to play in something like the Super Series. I recognize that some people think that being able to ban stuff means you'll invalidate someone's collection. That is a tough one, but I feel like it produces a more dynamic game state, which I think is really excellent for people to play in. None of this has been fun so far. I've delivered this super dry, like a lecture. And I've not loved it. Anyway, let's talk, shall we? Let's talk. Personally, I love the layout of the building. It's an old building with nice high ceilings. Oh, nice. Good area for space for 4 tables. When Nathan carries on with work he's doing or has planned, it'll look super sweet. Thanks, Big Goldfish, who's currently there. Crypto fascist Rob. Sorry, Mr. Start. Hey, Colonel Cabbage. Are the series teams already decided? Yes, that was at the start. Is this? Yeah. Okay. All right. So there's entries for new people. Yeah, and that's really, really important because the way into the Super Series in the future is you have to qualify. That's great. No problems there. Is there going to be a 40k Super Series? Yes, that's earmarked for the same time for February. Age of Sigmar is where I feel more comfortable for putting on the first one. But over the next 6 months, we're going to be able to develop the 40k teams and set up and run that as well. And hopefully take everything we've learned from the first one. Then where does it go from there? Well, also January, February time, well, over the next 6 months, is when we also talk to and develop all of our partnerships all around the world. Because there's people all around the world who want to run Super Series, which is cool. Problems that we have. Mr. Stark, can you start over at the beginning, please? Sure. Problems that we have from the start is that if we wanted to expand this beyond just our team doing it, we need an infrastructure in place for people to be able to log results and post results. So big shout out to BCP and DUP who've been helping us work on that for over a year. Those guys have been super awesome. They helped us out with CanCon and doing live integration of some stat stuff and some tournament tracking. But that's the key element that we've been able to, that we're working on, in being able to create a tournament format that people could just kind of plug and play where they are And again, that's provided to these people for free. It's not meant to be a money-making exercise. It's meant to be everyone does something together exercise, which is cool. It's a bit like a narrative campaign, only it's for playing Warhammer competitively, but also narratively. I think I've caught myself out there. And so that means that those people will be able to just pick up the TO software, do the TOing, report the information, and then everyone around the world can just have something to talk about, which is fun. That's the idea. It's meant to be fun. I don't really know when we ever jumped away from fun, but here we are. We're meant to be having a fun time, and we're hoping a very exciting time of fun, interactive Warhammer. That's the concept. Now, we also recognize that not everyone in the world is going to be able to do coverage like we will initially. However, we've also been doing things to support that. I've been in touch with, although I do need to reply to Gemma, and I'm sorry, from the failed charge, about loads of support that we could do to help them stream. Some guys in Sweden, I think, are streaming an event very soon, like with some of the information in. The guys, Mr. Tiga and those guys over, they want to do some streaming. And again, not only do we want to support that, we want to help and teach and then grow as a community in doing that. I think that that's a really exciting time. Yeah, that's fun. I mean, it gets a bit weird if you're in like the wrong places, you know, because the accents just really confuse everyone. No, I think that's fine. I wasn't paying attention for the second. I heard DP post T-Series activities. I'm not sure what that means. Say fun again. All right, Hawkeye. So post each week's round, we'll have a non-spoiler game breakdown analysis. So post each week's round, yes. Each week's round will have breakdowns of like stats and information. You'll also, again, obviously be able to watch those videos back. That's a key part, again, of the process. And again, something you have to clarify ahead of time. I had an issue with one of the players, for example. No. Let's just say that being able to have conversations with the teams ahead of time for the first one has been really beneficial, because what it's meant is I've been able to have conversations like, Rob, we don't really want to have a coach, or Rob, we don't really want a picture. And it's like, okay, but I need you to have those things. Could you please make sure you do? Because in the future, it's just going to be cast iron in the pack. You have to do those things or you can't have the thing. That's like the line, like, because you have to have some rules just so the thing works. Like, I want to be able to talk about all the teams. I want to make cool videos and do like interviews and some really fun stuff. But I can't do that if I don't have a picture to show the people at least. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. So there's been some really key elements that need to you need to approach, think about, and be a part of. And it's taken a lot of work, and there's a lot of stuff in the background of those thoughts that I guess maybe people haven't heard about, because until we announced Genesis, I guess people didn't really know all of those thoughts. And so I've been obtuse, which I apologize about, and now I'm trying to be very transparent, which I'm hoping is more useful for people and helps bring some clarity. So one of the things I got asked earlier is, am I trying to set something up like FIFA? And I guess the answer would be yes. I am trying to set up a sport. Absolutely. Am I trying to set up the sport? No. I'm trying to set up my version of some competitive gaming, but there's also loads of other versions. There's ETC there's WTC for 40k. There is, which is 8-man. There's AOS Six Nations, which is not 4-man. There is singles events, obviously, doubles events, obviously, team events, sure, narrative events also. The best bit about the community is the creativity in creating a whole bunch of types of events that people can attend in whichever fashion they want. This is just my version. My version of it being exciting for other people to be a part of, and me being an inclusive person. So someone in Norway, let's say, or Australia, let's say, wants to set up a Super Series. It's an A-OK from me. Like, it's great. Not only is it great, it's encouraged. And I'm going to talk about it. Why am I going to talk about it? Because it's an exciting thing. Like, I also have mentioned the Animosity campaign, and I'll probably interview one of those guys about that. Like, I interview people about all sorts of stuff because that's what I do. Now, I like this version of Rob. Anyway. But a good criticism that came up earlier is how can I be impartial about my own event? Which is a fair criticism. I feel like I'm self-depreciating enough and honest enough that I could potentially, but I bet everyone probably thinks that about themselves. Everyone probably thinks that they're a good person, and I think I am, or at least try to be, but I know I haven't been all the time, and I could be a better person. So really, what can I do about that? I guess really ask other people to independently cover what I do, just like I do for other people. I think that's fair, and it's completely okay. I think that's something I would really encourage. I would have to be the hypocrite of the highest order not to expect someone to want to talk about it. Whenever someone's had a conversation with me about what we're doing, there's been lots of pushback and also questions and criticisms and, some really good thoughts. When we first put out the pact for the Genesis event, for example, or we talked about it, there was one of the things that I'd put in, maybe foolishly, was the youngest person gets to decide the first ban. That's because I wanted to encourage young people to play. I was thinking of the young lady that plays in, the young ladies who play in Australia who kick everyone's ass. I was thinking Northern Ireland of Colin's son and Chris, and I'm thinking of all the young players around the world. And but then they were like, it's not professional, Rob. It's not proper. It's not how you do it. And I cycled back on that. That was me being a bleeding heart liberal about being encouraging effectively and wanting something that maybe didn't make much sense. And everyone who pushed back on it, fair play. And I respect and I appreciate that. That also came into effect when we talked about bans and people were talking about that. The timing of the event was something that we had conversations about, and we've sped up the timing of the event, which I think is quite interesting as well. I've also been able to lean on some incredible people to ask for their advice. Big shout out to Mark Wilson. Big shout out to Tom Adriani from the WTC and Neil Anishik, obviously. There's been some really, really talented... Clinto, I've talked to him quite a bit. Not about this specifically, but earlier in the year, we had conversations about it. I was in Sweden with the organisers of Kringslundan at 2 a.m. in bed with them, talking about this, and that was in November, and asking exactly what they would do and how they would go about it. This is pooled knowledge from lots of people, and yes, I am the person who effectively finally decides those things, but I don't want to put myself in any position that people have to be a part of it, because people do not have to be a part of it if they don't want to. But there is a pathway for people to be a part of it, which is cool. And if you don't want to be a part of it and you think it's shit, then that's great. You're entitled to your life and your opinions. I think that's cool too. Okay? That's fair. Right. Is there a potential for mercenary players if they cannot get a full team to commit? Absolutely, JP Stevens. So, great question. Thank you. So one of the things that I really, really wanted to do is I wanted to set up the role of coach. Now, there's been a lot of pushback from the team specifically because they all want to fucking play. Makes sense. And I get you. You want to play, you don't want to be a coach. But why is the coach important? Because I feel that there is a role in Sports Warhammer, or just generally gaming generally, where what you're going to be able to do is grab the information of good players, like JP as an example, had a particularly successful year. Yeah, grab him and be like, I want to have JP on my team. He's able to pivot between two armies. A lot of this, by the way, conversation about team setup has come from my really invaluable my invaluable conversations with Tom Layton from the 40K show, because Tom has been to several ETCs. I've also been able to speak to people like Val or the guys at the WTC, who's the 40K ETC. And I've also been able to speak to people who organize team events here for Age of Sigmar as well. I've had some invaluable people to ask questions of. And the role of the organizer for the team is valuable. It's been stated to me, it's really, really important. So the coaches I want eventually, let's say for a team qualifier, I want someone who's a kick-ass coach to just poach the 4 players that they want to play. They're like, this is my dynamic team. I'm going to give them the resources or the sponsorship or whatever it can be. Because what we do is we create a good and healthy environment for those players. Those players feel valued. Those players feel like they've got a place because they earned a place, because they practice and they work hard, which is what people should get if they are those things. And then they're able to be led on into the team tournament. Now, maybe that coach has put a terrible team together, but maybe that coach has also put a quality team together. So being able to put mercenaries together has been a key part. And we intentionally, for the Super Series, formed a mercenary team to see how they did. We intentionally got someone to play that role as a coach, going out there, looking for players to put a team together. And I'm not going to say who that is right now, but big shout out to him and big shout out to the team that he formed. It's awesome. So we've used that as a case example for the future, so you guys can see what that looks like. Okay, important question. Were you little or big spoon when talking Warhammer in Sweden? I actually slept downstairs in the foyer because Jonathan snores too much. Everyone wants to be Batman, no one wants to be Alfred. Yes, exactly. The more events, tourneys, etc., the better. Yeah. When in Sweden, Rob saw more balls than IKEA food court. That's also true. I saw a lot of balls, more than I would have asked. I wanted to. Anyway, now obviously some people might not feel that this is a positive, whatever that might be, and I recognise that. I guess I don't really get that, but I'm obviously inside it. I've worked a long time on this and think it's an exciting thing for people to play in and people to watch, which is really important to me. You know, we're not going to hide any bones about it. Like, and we've also made some, like, the pack's quite interesting. Made some fundamental rules changes to, like, how fly works, how terrain works. Those are some key elements. Do I want to see those adopted at other tournaments? I think that they're good solutions. Are they the perfect solutions? They don't have to be. The TO doesn't have to think that they are, and I don't have to be the guy who decides what all TOs and all tournaments are. I don't want that responsibility, and I've said that, if you listen, many times on the show. It's why I have continuously said, don't really want a compact. It's not what the case is. But I have had to organise that for this event, and I think that that's okay. A lot of that has been orientated around what's best for the viewers and the players, and sometimes there's a sliding scale. Do I think Realms is good for either the players or the viewers? No, I don't. Do I think that the fly keyword as it currently stands in its interaction with terrain is important? No, I think it's bad. Because, as a commentator, I would have to say, so technically that model is there, but it's not quite there, and yes, it kind of has to be 9 away, but no, it doesn't have to be 9 away. It sounds like, what's the right word? Like, it just doesn't sound right. And I feel like we lose people. And I think also gamers see that change and they think, yeah, that's a sensible change. That helps me. Or I feel like it does. And all the people who have asked, which I've had a lot of feedback on those subjects, have said that they like the change. Now, obviously, that could be an echo chamber, but I put it out into the world, and so far, no one's had any particular problems with rules changes as well, which is good. And those aren't fundamental rules changes. Those are just specific intended rules changes. Couldn't agree with you more on the flying. Thank you, Wonka. Owen, also thank you. Question, is the Super Series set up to find the best of the best, says Chuckabutty. It's a great question. It's a really great question. Let's talk about Warhammer at the minute and where we think the skill levels are. So obviously playing the game is a skill level. We all agree with that. Playing the game is a skill that you can develop and be better at. But we often talk about how important the list is. There are list shows. There are list analysis sites. Lists are a big deal. Lists. And so people's ability to adapt and change to list writing is really, really important. That's why the ban phase is there. It's to push these supposedly good players into effectively competent, quick-fire list writing. As viewers and as a community, we end up with more dynamic lists and an experience to appreciate. That's cool. I'm pro that thing. I think that's helpful. So I think maybe that produces the best list, right? But like the best list writers. Then obviously playing the games, they play multiple games over multiple battle plans. You see who the best players are. But then there's something else which we don't often talk about, where there's meta-analysis and there is kind of a strategy going in. You know, we talk about maybe a team having all shooting, or a team having all combat, or a team having all deny, or board control, whatever the case might be. Now, they have to kind of predict who they're playing, and they have to strategize, which again is another skill. It's something people get paid for in many different fields for many different ways. So what you've got is these 3 sliding elements of adaptability and skill. So you might not end up, the team that wins might not be the best at one, but hopefully, and most importantly, they're cumulatively the best of it all, which is the key part of I think, wargaming. I think, as you all know, we talk about meta analysis and all those other things that are occurring out there all the time. So approaching that and knowing that that's there also informs your games. In a singles event, that's different to a team event, and then that really changes up when you don't have those key units which you were planning on using anyway. So you almost have to predict the unpredictable and then work through that pace very quickly. And I'm very excited about that. Very excited to see what these teams kick out. There's a lot of research being done. A lot of work. Akare, I'm really glad you settled on the ESS as the name. Your previous choice of the Jizz Fest may have attracted the wrong clientele. Appreciate that. Rob, what's the biggest disconnect or difficulty you found between something that's good for viewers but not players, or the other way around? Okay. What is the biggest disconnect of difficulty you found between something that's good for viewers but not players? Okay. Good for viewers but not players. Dice tray. Dice tray. So there's going to be a dice tray on every board, which, if you've seen our coverage that we've done in the past, it's split into 4 boxes. There's a hit box, there's a wound box, there's a save box, and there's a damage box. And if the players roll into the boxes, you'll be able to see what the dice rolls are, specifically in the phases. The problem is, I've stood at tables with human beings longer than I would ever like discussing this element. There's nowhere good to put that dice tray. There's nowhere good to put them. If it's on the table, it affects the viewership. If it's next to the person, the cameras don't work and it gets in their way, the player's way. So there really isn't a good spot for where to put the dice tray. Yet everyone wants to know what the dice rolls are and what the dice results are. Could you put it in like a green screen box that's somewhere else? I mean, I can, but then those players have to move away from the table, roll the dice, or move back, and it affects the players. So it's a really, really problematic thing that I know the viewers want, but the players don't help produce. Nor would I want them to help produce. I want them to just play the game. We're trying to be as low impact on the players as possible. So we've got the dice tray, and I haven't enforced that people are going to have to roll on the dice tray. I would like to enforce, but I think it's too much of a negative experience for the players. I'm going to ask, would you mind? That would be cool, but I can't enforce it. And I don't think I could ever enforce it unless I made it part of the culture of there's a dice tray on the side table and people roll into it. And that's been the hardest part. That's been the biggest disconnect. Being able to show people. I mean, we even at one point earlier in the year, were bandying around the idea of an app, and then you pressed it, and then that just auto updates like an overlay. That would be awesome, but I feel like it quintessentially takes away from what our hobby is, which is rolling dice. No, you don't have to make dice trays as well, Big Goldfish. It's fine. They've already been made. I've got them. I'll bring one. Okay, so I hope that answers that question. I'm playing, says someone. I'm excited, nervous, and paid like a madman. Looking forward to it. Going to be great. Something totally different. It should be embraced as another option on the calendar. Thank you. That's the only point. So basic bitch competitive Warhammer discussion, so just balls, is always list, ignore everything else. See the whole subreddit. The Super Series will give a lot more play data on previous coverage. Thank you. That's the plan. We see a lot of the same players in the top 10 in Age of Sigmar tournaments in the UK. Are you concerned about winning teams being the same each round? So do you mean each Super Series? I expect after the first, it's not called the bracket, stage. After stage 1, there are 3 stages. When there's an 8 team event, there are 3 stages. 4 matches in the first one, which produces 4 winners who go on to play each other in the semi-finals, which is stage 2, who produce 2 more winners who end up in the final. The top 10 thing, again, I feel is defeated by the qualifying team tournament. Because if you are a really good player, you should place really well. But if you're going to a team qualifying tournament and you want to win, you're going to practice and work hard. So you have a pathway to defeat those good players, and those good players have the capacity to lose, not practice enough, or win and show that they are the good players. That's how competition works. And then we'll see. So maybe we'll see the same people, and maybe we won't. I'm really hoping that we see this motivates people to be the young team that's going to... I mean, you don't have to be young people, but the young team who go and kick ass. If that makes sense. Hey, Angle, I hope you're well. So a good question, Chuckabutty. Thank you. The idea of the best is an interesting concept of sports, and the rules of those sports are often driven by improving the viewer experience. Yes, look at Cricket 2020, if you want an experience of that. Football, the stats that they produce in basketball, there's a variety of ways. Like, the sports people normally know that the sport is for the viewers, which is what, again, after the first one, people who try to qualify for the event should know that it's meant to be a viewer-based event. That's the key part, right? It's very different to when we plan on going to something like the WTC. I'll give you a really good example. So we've been talking about covering the 40k World Team Championships. So 40k World Team Championships. And that's 8-man events between multiple teams. And I staffed it up. I did the math. It's like 16 people on the coverage team. Why so many people, Rob? Well, a match or a game is between 2 teams of 8. So that's 8 games that are going on. I need data from 8 games going to a commentary team. Ideally, potentially 2 commentary teams. I also then need all of the other matches that are happening between the 50 other people to have stats and information being driven out of there and delivered to a commentary team who are available to produce stuff. Now, you can do all of this in post-match, but the whole point of a sport is it's happening live. It's exciting. Like, it's that's what we're aiming for, so you guys can be a part of that process. And that's what we had planned. It's a huge volume of stuff that needs to be said, like, and thought about and processed. And I lost where I got myself. Oh, sports. But I'm never going to be able to interrupt any of those players because they're playing to be the best team in the world at 40k. Ever. Can't ask them a question. They might not even speak English. There's loads of problems with that. And so we need to defeat that as the coverage team. And so there are cases like this where we're putting on the event so we can do the coverage at our very best. And then there are events where we can only make do with the coverage that we can try to produce because the event hasn't been set up for coverage. And that is the very big difference, which I see some people online have got. This is an event for coverage, and then there are events where we cover. And those are very different. And we've tried our damned hardest, to make events that we cover very different, as good as we can be. And we've worked super hard on making them as good as possible. Baller. I feel like I answered that question well. Someone work out how to put sensors in the dice that give digital feed. There is, by the way, Born Again Manchild, some dice. We looked at them. They're super expensive, and they just plug into like a random app. But there is already those dice exist. Like, ask me a question. I bet you I've thought it through or I've seen it. Like, this isn't like a new thing. This is a long time in works. Someone work out how to put the view of the dice trays on YouTube channel is great, but super in studio and probably not possible in a tournament. Yes, Star, although we've got something like that. Said this before, but dice trays should be normalized for tournament play regardless. Makes it incredibly clear when dice results should count and what informal arguments between the players. Good point, Ben. Use the Royal Battle Board as a dice tray. Problem solved. Yeah, baby. Do you have a clear idea of what success looks like for the Super Series, Ben Clapperton? Yes, we do. We do one. Do I care about numbers of people that view it? No. It'd be cool if everyone watched it, but I don't right now. I would like watching parties where people drink beer and they book the day off and the lads just sit around and they get drunk. It's actually meant to be a live experience. The original plans were a venue where people could sit bums on seats and also be a part of the crowd. That won't happen anymore. Colonel Cabbage, thanks for donating £10 to the fund. 37%, we're almost there. But obviously COVID, we understand that lots of these decisions have been COVID related. And also the Super Series was earmarked for a little bit later because we had a ton of events that we were going to be covering this year. AOS Six Nations, WTC, CCBB, like pick an event. Tons of events were meant to be out, but now we're not. So we can do this now for a bit. And it's a good thing for COVID because we don't have to have many people there. It's not a 40-man event or a 20-man event. It's safe as wargaming could be, and that's not very safe. So do you have a clear idea of what success looks like? Yes, success is just doing the thing, start to finish, with everything that we currently have, which is 8 teams, play through the process, and they win the prize. And then we cover each one of those events. We do a band show, we do a list reveal show, and we do a stat show. That's success. After that, we're going to break it all down again and see what we can do better, because that's the right way. And any criticisms or thoughts that you think you have, you're always welcome to throw our way. We'd love to hear it every time. Still having a great time with Khorne, but the meta is too skewed against the book. I think the anti-magic is very strong, but shooting... Oh, someone's replying something. Do you think the ban stage would give bigger advantage to factions that can interchange battle line from multiple books, e.g. Chaos compared to Destruction? JP, I do think that the ban phase... I think I maybe have over-egged it at 10. I think maybe something like 8 makes more sense because there's 4 players, so why have I picked 5? Like, why have I picked 5 each? Maybe it could bring down to 4, maybe even bring down to 3. It's going to be a really good conversation. We won't know until we do it. So again, that could be part of that process that we go into. Again, why I've needed people who have been willing to move around some of the thoughts, dates, and be a part of a process that has been very malleable up until just this weekend. Like, and again, shout out to all of the coaches who are in the coach chat with me, who've been helping me make sure this gets off the ground. What about asking the players to use the app, roller or something digital? Yeah, I said that, but I just think it takes away the core element of what the game is. How does the ban phase work? Okay, the ban phase works like this. 2 teams are earmarked to play on game day. On the Monday, they'll get together and we'll live stream this. They'll get together and they will ban units. And it's all in the pack. You can go and read that's on the Honest Wargamer, on the T-Sports Network website. But effectively, Team A gets to ban one unit. Now you can't ban battle line, but you can ban battle line if there's been some conversation today where weirdly there's even more clarity needed, but that's fine. Where battle line that is for a sub-faction, so let's say not sub-faction, but battle line that is for a faction. So Pink Horrors are battle line in Tzeentch, as an example. They count as battle line that cannot be banned. Easy peasy. That's the one clarification that isn't currently on the site, if that helps everyone. But once you ban a unit, boom. So then the teams will go through that process and they'll ban 10 units. Those 10 units aren't available to be chosen for list submission on the Thursday, and therefore they can't be played. They also can't be summoned in, so you can't sneak around there. That's clever. So that's it. So you just ban a unit, and you can't ban battle line units with the stipulation. There are some fringe cases, which is really interesting, like Stormcast. And if you ban a unit from a book, you can no longer ban other units from that book. There are some fringe cases in this case. So if I ban a Stormcast unit, that doesn't affect Cities of Sigmar, even though you can take Stormcast in Cities of Sigmar. So let's say I was to ban Celestant Prime. I could no longer ban any other units from Cities of Sigmar, but I can ban units from Cities of Sigmar. And once I ban, let's say, the Hurricanum, I can no longer ban any units from Cities of Sigmar and from Stormcast. And that applies to both teams. And it's that simple. So there are 10 things taken out. Big conversation is everyone reckons that everyone's going to do safety bans. So I'm just going to ban... I'm trying not to say a particular faction. So let's say I ban... I want to really take Skinks. So I ban Saurus Warrior. Oh no, Saurus Warrior is ban line. I ban a Stegodon, let's say. But because I really want to take Skinks. So you can't ban Skinks anyway. I really want to take Salamanders. So I ban Stegodon, which means that my Salamanders are safe. Go me. That's how it works. I'm not saying Lotan. I'm not saying it. Be clear, the ban affects cities for list building, but not for ban limits. Yes, it does affect them in their list building, but it doesn't for ban limits. Thank you very much, Colonel Cabbage. So that's how it works. There you go. Most banned unit, Lotan. Ban them Saurus Knights. Okay, so if I run Hammer Holly and Lancers and they ban Phoenix Guard, my Lancers are safe. Yes, sir. That's exactly correct. If they ban Phoenix Guard, they're safe. Easy peasy, because they're not battleline there. Can you destroy a whole faction that way, though? Now, Warp Spider, I don't see how you can. Really, you would have to, it's been thought through a lot by a lot of people, but I don't know how you would. You pick a faction. So you could ban, I don't know, if you ban the Ironclad for KO, it's pretty impactful. And if you ban the War Chanter for Ironjaws, that's also pretty impactful. Pretty much is their key bit. But if you ban the Lord of Change, you stop Change Host working. But that doesn't mean you stop Host Arcanum, which I know Ulf over in Sweden ran this weekend for a 3-0 with his Host Arcanum Archeon. Host Arcanum in Tzeentch, by the way, they get D3 units get to move 6 inches at the start of the turn. So Archeon basically gets a 6-inch game pre-move in Host Arcanum because he's Tzeentch and can fly, which means he's just that bit faster to throw into your opponent's face, which is a cool little trick. But Battleline If can be banned. So Idoneth, you ban eels seems significant. It does if a faction is only 1 unit. And what that is meant to attack, or the problem it's meant to solve, is armies that are only 1 unit. Because armies that are only 1 unit are fairly boring. And I'm just going to say it. And I don't mind that armies that are only 1 unit might not get to play. It's fine with me. I think that is an okay result. If you're an Idoneth player who only runs eels and has only ever run eels, then I could see how you'd be peeved. And I apologise about that, but I would actually prefer if your book had more internal parity and you had more options to run. Big shout out to all my turtle players. And there are also 2 types of eels. You could just run defensive eels. If you ban Nagash, no JP. It's in the pack again. Nagash has got a fringe case. Nagash's home book is considered to be Legions of Nagash. So if you ban Nagash, he's banned from Legions of Nagash, and everything else in Legions of Nagash is safe. I understand that this negatively affects Petrifex, because then you could also ban something from Petrifex. And the Nagash build in Petrifex is as important as the Catacross build. So you could go for the double ban and maybe hit Petrifex. Not Petrifex, they're not even called Petrifex. Ocearchs. Sorry. You could ban Ocearchs out. Maybe. But that's a big double ban. And don't forget, you could potentially safety ban if you really want to keep one of those. So you can keep Nagash in by just banning any old piece of shit from Legions of Nagash, and then you've still got both of those too, right? Beast of Chaos ROP in this format, because you ban 1 shit unit and 10 more will take its place. Crawler most banned for OBR, calling it now. Yeah, I think the Crawler's the one to ban. But then the teams go into this process knowing that's the case. So they don't practice the army. They practice the fringe case army. They practice the Crematorium's Gothazar Harvester build. Is that great? Who knows? But the teams bring out, teams and players bring out wacky lists all the time. All the time. Making them have to do that is an important process. Cool. All right, well, I've talked about loads of this now. And I feel like it's been good. But if you don't think that and you would like to leave some feedback with me, then you're more than welcome. I'm always open to that conversation, especially on a one-on-one basis. But again, some clarity. I'm not trying to take over the world. That's not my point. And I encourage people to independently review the work that we're doing, because I think that that's excellent. And I would like to hear that, because I'm only going to get better through constructive criticism. If your opinion's shit, though, I might ignore it. You can ban certain units will mess with your army but aren't exactly meta. It's a whole level of mind games and meta prediction. Yeah, there you go. It's good, I think. You can leave, yes. So does that mean I probably won't see any Daughters of Cain armies because they rely so much on internal synergy? So Stahl, that's a really interesting part, because do you go through the process of banning everything? Do you go quickly I'll ban hags, end of? I personally, if I wanted to affect Daughters of Cain but also make a really great meta pick, I'd actually pick Kinrian Heartrenders, because they're an excellent ally in loads of armies, because of what they do and their role for securing objectives. But they're also, I think, a key part and an underrated part of how Daughters of Cain actually work. So you leave Daughters of Cain kind of whole, but you make them work for it much harder. Because after that, they've just got Marathi who they're throwing forward and some Witch Elves that they're beating you up with. So they don't key in, if that makes sense. Ban Tree Revs, incredibly allied choice. Yeah. Can we talk about the real news of Nathan being the future of Burlesque now? Yeah, we can. Let's finish on that. Nathan Prescott, most people might not know, is actually the sound engineer and lighting technician for a burlesque show that happens online on OnlyFans every maybe week or every 2 weeks. If I can find the link, I will include it in the show notes. And he quite often works really hard on those projects. I know the lighting has been particularly tough for him recently. And last night he kind of unwound in his staff party where the technicians of Just Him got together and had a really fun time. They drank a lot of tequila, and reports that I got via voice notes have told me that he covered himself in glitter. I think intentionally. I'm not sure why. I think he thought he was going to become a mermaid if he did it, but that's tequila. But we will, in the future, be doing some more reviews on that, I think. There we go. There we go. Any other questions before we head out? Thank you for the conversation today. I hope you guys, if anyone you know wants to know some more about the timeline, you might be able to put that into process now. I will say that one of the things I'm very, very excited about, knowing that the Genesis event is coming up, is looking forward to doing the 40k Super Series. Very, very excited about that. Obviously, there's a lot of 40k out there in the world at the minute, and I'm hype to see that put together, start seeing the teams. I'm also really excited to hear if you decide you guys are going to put any teams together for the Super Series that you're going to try and qualify for in January, February next year. I'd love to hear team names. I'd love to hear your ideas, who your team's going to be, what anything. I think it's all really interesting. Bring a couple of plasters. Okay, fine. I can't think of a product launch having more customer community feedback. Okay, well that's good. Team Mini Rollers. There we go. The Bird Gang. That's good. Yeah, I would personally choose Fight Milk as my team name, but do you know what? Can I just touch on something very quickly? This is something that I would like to do. I would like to be a player. I would like to be part of the process. I feel like it's quite exciting, which is sad because I don't get to do that. And most people might be like, oh, well, fuck you, Rob. You do this for a living. How cool is that? It's cool. It's cool. Super hard. I work every day, all day. I've done 14-hour days now for pretty much every day that I can think of for the past few weeks. I've obviously been online for 150 days. My relationship has ended in part because of this. I do not live overly great, but well enough. I've got pretty low standards, so I'm fine. And this is pretty much everything I've put both my money, heart, and soul, and all of my time into. I joked the other day, yesterday to someone, I was like, I don't have anything else to do. That might be sad, but right now I'm okay with it. I feel like it's something almost monastic. I'm just involved in it. But I would really like to come out of this, the other side, in a few years, and be a part of the process, and be able to just hand it off to someone to run, or have them in other countries and go and attend one, because I think that would be cool. And I think that's what I'm working towards, that goal and that dream. Now, obviously, that's my goal and my dream. That doesn't mean it's the community's goal or the community's dream. It's only whoever supports what the project is to do that. And it's okay if you don't want to be a part of that process, but it doesn't mean that you aren't part of the community. You're always a part of the community. That's who you are. And sometimes you're part of your own, really shitty part of a community that I don't want to be a part of, and I think you're a twat. That's fine. And then you might think that I'm a shitty part of the community, you don't want to be part of me, so you think I'm a twat. That's also cool. That's fine. Just find your tribe, find people that work on your energy level, and just be with them. That's the coolest part about what this is. Because my energy level is a man who gets drunk, covers himself in glitter, and is the sound technician for a burlesque show. And you lot. So that's me. All right, anyway, I'm out. I'll see you all tomorrow, obviously. Tomorrow night, I think we're talking Shadespire warbands. And if they're a good choice in the game. Answer, no. But it'll be fun to talk about. Anyway, you guys are doing great. Thank you for everyone who supports us on Patreon. I do this for a living. I don't know. It's been expressed to me that you people might not know this. I literally live. It's my job. So you pay my wages. So I couldn't do this without you. It's been specified that maybe for some reason that's confusing and people don't understand that, but you do support me, and I thank you for doing so. Thank you to everyone who subscribes on Twitch. That's also the same thing. And also thank you to everyone who listens to the podcast. Big love to you. Anyway, have a great day. Look after yourselves and stay healthy. Drink water, which I've not done in this show. I regret that. And I'm off now to work at the venue. Have a good day. See you soon.